Circle of life. Come on in, everybody. Welcome, everybody. My name is Joe Garvey, and I thought The Lion King, Circle of Life, the theme song. This panel, we're going to be talking about infrastructure lifecycle. And you think about, as we go through the conceptualization and then the design and the planning, we are so focused on what's right in front of us. We often don't think about what happens downstream. After the construction, you get handed over to the operations and the maintenance, and then how that asset or that is life cycle of that then translates back on maintenance to rehabilitation and expansion and so forth. So today, the title here, Shaping Infrastructure Lifecycle Management Through Digital Transformation, gives us a way to think about and not to overlook. We have the full life cycle, the circle of life, if you will, that we've got to think through. And we're all guilty, I suspect, I know I am. We get so focused on the task at hand, we don't always respect and think about what happened right before that moment. And we don't always think about what happens after this moment that I'm in right now. And we have got a great panel, a wonderful panel with a great group of different agencies. It's Texas, the DOT at the state level. We've got the city of Fort Worth. We've got the Harris County on a tolling side, with their very advanced in some areas and a life cycle on the other. And then we have the Dallas area rapid transit. So we've got a wonderful spectrum. And the challenge for us today is to have a discussion about what are we doing in terms of how we handle the life cycle of the assets and the infrastructure that we are provided. We are custodians of that. I really liked Sanjay's presentation right before a break. And what are we doing? I loved it. He said, you can't future proof, but you can future prepare. And we think about the life cycle, there's always something coming next. And how do we do that? So I'm going to quickly introduce each of our panelists. The first one is An here. An is with the Texas Department of Transportation. She's the Chief Information Officer, the CIO of TxDOT. And it's fascinating. It wasn't that many years ago that TxDOT recognized the critical strategic importance of data and IT systems at the highest level. Then next to her, we have Omar. Omar is with the city of Fort Worth. Dear to my heart, pavement-related activities. He's the pavement engineer there. Lalani is with HECTRA, is how we call it. It's the Harris County Toll Road Agency, right? Or authority, very good. And then we also have Daryl Spencer here with the Dallas area Dallas area rapid transit. Got it, bingo. So we'll start with An, and kind of An, just maybe share with us the life cycle management that you're part of, some of the initiatives that you're doing, especially some of the challenges that all of us are likely facing, whether it's technology and also people.
Yeah, and is this on? No. Is there a button? Where's the button?
I think it's right here.
See, the CIO can learn something. So, it's, as you guys probably heard our executive director this morning, Mark Williams, we are hitting a monumental $100 billion in the next 10 years when it comes to transportation funding. With that parlays into a greater amount of assets that we have to manage, not only just on the roads, but just on our IT infrastructure. But also, as we're looking at innovation and moving towards modernization, the way that we've been doing engineering has also fundamentally changed. How that's changed is we're moving away from paper to more digital. We're moving, everything's data now also, right? You hear, we're at a point now where our biggest challenge is going to be the data that we receive and how we manage that data. And so those are some of the key challenges that we have, which is taking a very conservative area of the industry, engineering, and basically modernizing it and keeping control of the information and the assets in a way that is structured and that can be easily retrieved and maintained. And so some of the key efforts that we've got at TxDOT is, one, from a data perspective, we are looking right now at building out a holistic data strategy and data warehouse platform. We started with a really immature data lake when I first started at TxDOT. And what we did was we basically developed a program around how do we aggressively build a data warehouse that's comprehensive. And so we now have a strategy that we're building out our business data in Snowflake. And so we're going to be migrating from the data lake platform over to Snowflake. And then we're building out several tiers of data. So there's going to be a business data platform. There will be, or tower, there will be a GIS one. There will be a traffic data platform, and that holistically will be combined to help derive, dashboards and reports to allow us to make key decisions, whether that's about congestion, whether that's about safety, and then how do we quickly implement traffic technologies that can allow us to leverage that data and then push it to the public's cars or their mobile devices so that we can help them reroute themselves during a time of emergency management and congestion and so on and so forth. Another major effort is developing that digital twin. We've heard digital twin, right? IT, like Joe was talking, has become a critical strategic partnership inside TxDOT. That has been an evolution in the last 4 years since I've been there. It is really being a value versus a hindrance. And so really partnering up with the design division to really push more of a holistic digital strategy so that we can have more digital models and designs so that we're not being dependent on just paper information. Another key area that we're doing is a holistic overhaul of our network. TxDOT experienced a major ransomware back in 2020, and it took down our whole network, and it really put on hold operations for a while. We were instrumental in bringing it back within 30 days. We didn't pay the ransomware, but it taught us some key fundamental issues, which is, one, we have a very antiquated network architecture. So another key area from a life cycle perspective is re-architecting our network so that we have a split. We have a business network and we have a traffic network, and all of our ITS, which is so critical that we keep up, is separated from any vulnerabilities for the business network. In addition to that, we're trying to standardize on our routers and switches out in the field so that from an operational overhead perspective, we can reduce the overhead to the traffic side or the districts so that when we have to update routers and switches and we keep that network modern, that it's easy to do when you're not dealing with multiple versions of the infrastructure. And then making sure that we have a holistic asset management process and system so that we know what hardware is on our network, when it needs to be updated, and then be able to forecast the budget appropriately. And then one more item before I'll finish is, in addition to this massive amount of monies that we're getting and the responsibility of building more and more roads, one of the key things that we're also doing is a enterprise contract lifecycle process. And what that means is making sure that as people enter contract information, whether it is vendor information, cost information, funding information, and expiration of when that contract is, that we're able to track all active contracts when they expire so that we can cleanly be able to predict our budget as well as holistically know when we need to roll off vendors, also from a security perspective. So a lot of cool things are happening, and proud to be a part of modernizing TxDOT because I think it's going to be, the next several years is a fun time for us.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. There's lots of questions that are rolling in my head, but we'll keep going. By the way, we're going to go through the panel in the same order as identified in the program. So the next person here, Daryl from the Dallas Area Rapid Transit, doing some really cool stuff over there. So share with us, what does this challenge mean to you of the life cycle management and digital transformation?
Thank you, Joe. Good morning, everyone. I've been enjoying the conference so far, as you have, I'm sure. I am Daryl Spencer. I'm the Vice President of Engineering and Construction with DART, Dallas Air Rapid Transit. I've been with the agency now. This is my 30th year, so I've seen a lot, experienced a lot from a growth perspective at our agency, and where we find ourselves today, much like the other municipalities and team members that's on this panel, is grappling with a state of good repair. And what does that mean? How do we overcome that? We have at this agency 93 miles of track within our light rail system. We have the largest light rail system in North America. Within this 93 miles of track system and this rail network, we have 208 overhead catenary wire lines that we have to monitor and maintain over time, along with 100 bridges that support this light rail network. So just those assets alone is a daunting task for us, but I'm really proud of our team. We've done a great job in just maintaining those assets. This light rail system is 25 years old. The agency itself, we are entering our 40th anniversary. So as An said, we have to learn things in terms of new technologies. We look at where we stand right now in terms of resources. My staff, I have 51 budgeted positions, but I still have about 10 positions that I'm still trying to hire in terms of engineering positions. And that's a challenge for us, right? One of the things that we were able to take advantage of that was really exciting in the past couple of years is that we received a $184,000 grant from the FTA. It was issued under a real-time infrastructure and rolling stock asset condition assessment demonstration. So with that, we partnered with a company called Aerial One Digital Twin Tech. We partnered with them. They acquired a LiDAR technology along with a drone to demonstrate and experiment on how we can use this digital technology, this advanced technology, in inspecting and assessing our structures. The overhead catenary wire that we talked about for our light rail system, the track structure, along with bridges. We've learned a lot over the past 2 years. We know that the data warehouse is important for us because right now we have a manual process. It takes our technician 3 days to cover the inspection and assess this 93 miles of track and the 208 miles of our overhead catenary wire. So we are excited about using digital technology, the drone technology that I spoke of. Innovatively, what we did, we designed a mounting bracket to mount on one of our trains. We have 163 trains, and that train will be used conceptually as a maintenance vehicle or an engineering vehicle to capture data during the off-peak service. Our maintenance window for inspecting our assets on our light rail system is shrinking because of our service window. I think we're down to maybe about 45 minutes, off-peak. So this digital technology is going to be vitally important for us to kind of leverage that and grow it over time to integrate that into our operations. Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. That's fascinating. I know when you and I were speaking a little bit about the digital twin effort that you have, and the crazy thing about digital twin is whatever that digital twin is right now, it's different in an hour. It's different in a day, in a week, and so that continuous data flow, fascinating. What you guys are doing is cool. And now Leilani, the Harris County Road Toll Authority. And you had shared with me that you guys are at some levels kind of early in the adoption of certain technology, but other places extremely advanced with AI. So tell us about lifecycle management from your perspective.
Good morning. Yes, my name is Leilani Thielen. I am the interim deputy director for the operations and facility infrastructure maintenance, basically. I have been in maintenance for 10 years at Hectra, started as a baby engineer and now up here in the executive level. So for Hectra, in the 10 years that I've seen a lot of change and a lot of growth within our own people. As we get new employees and new younger generations, they want to see more things written down. And then we still have some of the older generation that we have to transition to this new technology. Digitizing all of our assets is different now than it was back then, where everything was on paper, right? So over the 10 years, we have digitized so many of our assets. We have over 800 lane miles. We have 220 something bridges that we inspect every year. So I know TxDOT does bridge inspections every other year, or they do it every year, but they inspect each one of our structures every 2 years. We have to inspect those same structures every year and make sure they're in a state of good repair. And so all that data has to be collected. And before it was collected manually, and now we use ArcGIS based applications that and drone inspection software, where we can integrate that into our process for analyzing what work needs to be done when. That way we can maintain our assets as we get new assets and through the life cycle of each asset. So it's extremely important for us to make sure that we understand new technology, vet new technology. We're in a unique position in Harris County where we are revenue generating. And so we need to be able to be at the forefront of some of this technology because we can afford to do that. So we'd love to standardize best practices, but we are a little behind. So one of the biggest challenges is our workforce, and really just being able to have young, talented people that can learn from the people that are retiring. So that's been a big challenge for us. And so we're just very excited for this next phase of Hectra and trying to maintain the new connections that we build. We like to think of our tollways as connections or connectors. We're trying to connect people, not just physically, but also socio-economically, like Sanjay was saying. That resonated a lot with me because that's what we're trying to do here as well. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Leilani. So you have the Sanjay's presentation. I learned a lot about your area. I hadn't learned a lot about that, not just the city of Houston, but when he characterized around the area, it was about equal to the city of Houston.
Oh,
and they're going to add all that. So it's a big challenge, so.
It just keeps growing.
Yeah.
And we, before in the past, we built our tollways in areas where there was quite literally nothing. And now we have to account for the fact that we have sprawling urban areas being built around our facilities. And how are we going to provide connections from each community to the other, from each side of the road to the other? That was never thought of before. And now we're expanding how we think of connections, and maybe expanding into our Tollways to Trailways project, which is building or helping to enhance the region with trailways. So we're gaining more assets every day, and so we have to be able to digitize all of that data and analyze it to be preventative with our maintenance in the future.
That's great. Our next panelist, Omar. Omar is from Fort Worth, and as I mentioned at the beginning, is very close to my heart because he works with pavements. And every community has all kinds of infrastructure. We have water and wastewater, electrical grids, and we have structures that kind of keep the roads all together. But at the end of the day, pavements is a major, major asset class for each of us to be able to manage. And Omar, you have a particular challenge with the pavement and making decisions around the life cycle of that particular area. Share with us, if you will, your experience and what's happening with Fort Worth.
Sure, yeah. So thank you first for inviting me for being here. So to begin with, let me give you a little bit of background about myself and where I came from. So I came to Texas 7 years ago working in consulting. And my main focus as a consultant was to build 5-year plans for pavement rehabilitation and maintenance for cities, similar to cities like we have here. Georgetown, for example, was one of the cities I worked on, city of San Marcos, and Tyler, and many other cities here in Texas. When you move to Texas, you always think that we have Houston, San Antonio, and Dallas, and the fastest growing city is Austin. You never think that city of Fort Worth is the 12th largest city in the US, and it has a huge pavement network of 8,000 lane miles, 40,000 blocks, and 425 bridges. So when I moved to city of Fort Worth 1 year ago as a pavement management program manager over the maintenance for both pavements and bridges, I went first with this consulting mind that you sit on your computer and you make a plan, and imagining that looking just at your pavement by itself will be enough. You will be surprised with how many aspects when you have 40,000 blocks. You don't just have the pavement data by itself. You have pavement data, you have other assets like sidewalks, curb and gutters. You have other departments who also have plans on these sections like water department, sewer department, and you have factors that you never thought for before as a consultant, like proximity to schools, proximity to hospitals, strategic corridors, uh, projects that has already been planned through the master plan or through the bond programs. So it's a huge data. So first of all, you need to have one big database using big data analysis to have everything together. So every time you want to develop a 5-year plan or you want to develop your next year plan, you don't need to send emails and keep calling water department and sewer department. Do you have plans on this street or not? And imagine that there is no one big database that includes all of this. You have to build this by yourself to have one data and make one decision making procedure, and make everyone else also to be aware of and following without losing this so much time in communication between departments. One more thing that I have talked to Joe about, our data, when you have like this huge network of 40,000 blocks, we are surveying it every 4 years, and we are surveying our bridges every couple of years, and we plan our projects. However, things happen, and sometimes you feel like 4 years is a long span and you need to do more. For example, this year, after we planned our bridge projects and we sent it for design and we allocated budget, we had some citizens who had an accident with fire underneath one of our bridges, and it came as an emergency, and we need to act right now. So what we are looking for now in city of Fort Worth, at least at my position, is to reach out to these cell phone technology. When you have your cell phone on your dashboard and you keep collecting data and upload it to the cloud. So in addition to the 4-year or 5-year data that you have, you should also have something maybe less accurate, but gives you data every day or every other month, utilizing cell phone applications, put on dashboard on police cars, city employees' cars, and being updated to the cloud is one thing that we are really looking at right now. Yeah, that's it.
Very, very interesting. There's a couple of themes that I was hearing, and I'd like to ask the panelists. One, the first one is we're pretty good at getting the data at each stage of a life cycle. And what we've seen at Trimble is the design side, and then you take the design, you hand it off to construction, and then you construct it, you hand it off. So we're pretty good at the silos, but we've seen a pretty major drop in the value and kind of the lost in translation of data from one stage to the other. And I'm wondering, in any of your organizations, if you've seen that, and if there's anything that you're doing to try to maintain the value transitioning from planning to design to construction to operations to maintenance. Is there any one of you have a comment on that? Yeah,
I'd like to, if I can start off. At Hectra, we were noticing that very same issue. I was working in maintenance and didn't have as much communication as I probably should have with construction and engineering, because I could have told them to do things better, just saying. for me to maintain because it was just handed off to me. So what Roberto Trevino came on and really, he's the executive director now. He came on and he had this vision that we all kind of agreed with. We stopped working in our silos, and he implemented something with the team that is more cradle to grave. So beginning to end of a project, we want to have one or two people, mainly just one point of contact from the design stage planning phase all the way through maintenance, so that you have this connection to every one of those people that work in those specific areas, and be able to track, historically what's going on with that project, and talk to maintenance during the planning and design, and vice versa. How can we maintain this in the future for our children's children, right? If we're not, why are we building this if it's not meant to last? These elements, bridges are supposed to last 40, 50 years. We have to make it so that the maintenance is not astronomically high for those children, for those of us that are going to have to maintain them after we get, after people go off and do other things. So it's extremely important for us to have that connection between the beginning and the end. And we're starting to shift our organization so that we do have people that start a project and try and go all the way through. It's difficult because we're trying to find some unicorns in the engineering world that can do all these things, but it's one of our goals, really.
Very good.
I
Daryl,
have
you had a comment?
Yes, I do, and thank you for that. And I would echo what Anna just talked about. I likewise came from the operations maintenance world, right? Operations engineering, if you will. So my boss now is, her name is Dee Liggett. She was on the panel here earlier. Her vision was to merge the two worlds, right? And from capital development, design and construction, to operations engineering and operations and maintenance. Now, part of our redevelopment, I'm on the capital side. So I can bring that knowledge base and be the linchpin between operations and maintenance and design and construction, which I think is going to be important for us to make sure we have successful design projects. In addition to that, what I'm excited about is that our agency is transforming into something that we refer to as the next big thing. We have to modernize our system and leverage technology, and we can't be afraid to use technology. I'll give you an example of going back to the maintenance side and using that as an example. One of our bridges had a bearing pad to walk out, and became displaced over time because of the operations and the age. But when we went back for the repair, we ended up having to install a retainer to prevent that bearing pad from migrating out. But that goes back to design and maintenance, right? So that's an example of why that's important, to bridge that gap between those 2 points. Just one more point on the technology side. We are looking at under track surveillance system as part of another technology, just to continue to monitoring track conditions. There's a large number of other technologies from a digital transformation perspective that I think that's out there we need to start leveraging going forward, particularly for the maintenance operations.
Go ahead, Ann.
So I'm probably the only non-engineer here, which I'm actually very happy because my husband's an engineer, and I'll be honest with you. So I'm the IT person. I will say, I think the most common solution that we can look at is, everybody's going to have their own system. Design has their system, maintenance has their system, contracts has their system. Everybody has little bits of every single component of that life cycle that you're talking about, right? But then you've also heard a common theme up here, which is data. Data is power. But the unfortunate situation is, we are silos of our talent and our expertise. So everybody feels like their system is the greatest system with the greatest information. But how powerful would it be if we actually integrated all those systems from a data perspective to be able to look at that life cycle end to end and make the decisions? And I think that's where we are at TxDOT is, we are so big that I'm not on the operational side, but I think it would be challenged to be able to have one engineer throughout the process end to end. But I think some of the key things that I know TxDOT leadership has focused in on is how do we modernize some of these systems so that it's resilient and robust and sustainable? And then how do we build that data layer on top so that it doesn't matter where you are from an operational perspective, but if we can integrate in your system of record, right, and be able to have the information and pull it into a comprehensive data set so that we have that holistic look, that really is the solution. And so that's what we're trying to do. And that goes back to building a really strong data team, that data warehouse team that I talked about earlier, which is that really is the cusp of where we need to go, which is I totally agree with Daryl. Modernizing systems, I mean, there are some antiquated systems out there. It's engineering, right? It's a very, long-standing industry, but you need to modernize the system. You need to put a strong data platform on top of it so that you can get that end-to-end look and feel.
Very good. Omar, any thoughts from your perspective?
So the main challenge that I feel during my job, or the main gaps that I can feel, is after the event of maintenance. So, for example, our project managers, they have years of experience doing what they are good at doing, which is advertising projects, looking after the contractor, calculating quantities, and make sure we are doing a good job in the field. But once the event is done, it is so important to update all of your data back and see this street now is done, or we have changed the surface here now. It is not concrete anymore. This one is asphalt. And again, coming back again to the same idea that let every other department know that, and let every other department tell you what they are done. For myself, for example, this is a very specific example. When you have a street that has cast iron pipe underneath it, you will not touch it as pavement because you know that water department will come in the next couple of years and they change the pipes. So there is no point of overlaying or reconstructing this street for now. But maybe actually this data is old, or maybe water department has done it this year, but it never been updated. Or maybe I have downloaded a shapefile to make my life easier and then they update it to another database. So having first build in the mind of your PMs how important it is as building the project is to update the database and say this project is built and this is the impact that this project has does. It changes the surface type. We have built the sidewalk. We have changed the pipe here. And also make sure that we are using one integrated GIS database, or at least download a new one every month, so that you are working on current data, not old data, and making your decision based on what is current.
That's a great point. Just the data accuracy, contemporary data, right? Current data. That's a great point. Another theme, and we got about 5 minutes left, so we'll try to keep the comments down to about 60 seconds each, if we will, but we can. But I saw lots of heads up here nodding, and probably in the audience when we talked about difficult finding high quality engineers and people, and just hiring, and we've got young minds developing out there. And maybe just from your perspective, what are you doing to attract and retain, and what are some things we should be thinking about to make it a great place to work in public sector? Let's just start with right? To just kind of go right down the road.
So, TxDOT has a very strong internship program. And so every year we bring in hundreds of interns, and we're really giving them a taste of the culture, right? When you work for state government, it is giving you a safe place to grow and learn. And it is, TxDOT is a family culture. And so giving that positive culture of being able to have a safe place to learn and grow, I think is really making it advantageous for us to bring in new resources.
Yeah, we are facing a hard time finding talents and finding engineers so far. I believe City of Fort Worth is one of the most friendly environment that you can work for. That's why you can work with. So far, we have been doing advertising for many engineering positions. It's hard. It's hard to find. For me, I believe City of Fort Worth, they are fair, and there is always like a clear pathway to grow. If you have your PE, you can reach that. If you have 5 years of experience, you can reach this. So this is very important as well when you come to the public sector, that you know your steps and you know that there is room to grow for you. And also going from a department to another, it's not that hard. So you can grow in other departments as well.
So at Hectra, we do have an internship program as well, but I think one of the things we're focusing on is actually community engagement, getting our message out there. A lot of times the toll road is seen a little bit negatively, like, why do I have to pay? Don't my taxes pay? And no, they don't. The tolls pay for what we do. And so just getting our message out there that we're just trying to connect and we're trying to uh, improve the region as a whole multimodally and do what we can there. So I think right now we're focusing on trying to talk to the community and tell everyone we're here. It's a great place to work, make an impact on your society, make an impact in your region, make an impact in your community. And this is one of the places you can do that. So we're trying to attract that type of excitement to come work for us, but it is very difficult seeing how a lot of our knowledge base is retiring out. So we're just trying to make it.
So, very good topic. I'm glad that you asked that question. So much like what An stated, we're trying to hire more engineers from a standpoint of, and that's two positions actually, engineers and data scientists. So engineers, what we've done strategically was, historically, we had a minimum at the entry level of 5-year experience, much like Omar talked about for engineers. We have dropped those requirements down. So an entry-level engineer graduated right out of college with their bachelor's, they would never meet that minimum requirement. And so we were losing them. So we've changed and our job descriptions to drop those requirements down to begin to attract and retain those young engineers so we can get them into the workplace at DART. That's one on the engineering side. On the data scientist side, I have a division that's entitled Reliability Engineering and Configuration Management. And part of that division, I have an asset management division. Part of that asset management division, I am really seeking business analysts and data scientists to help us with all this data that we have historically and those that we're going to be capturing using this digital transformation, because the running joke is that we're data rich, but we're analysis poor, right? And part of that, that to overcome that, we need data scientists. Ironically, my son is a graduate. He's a chemical engineer by degree, but he works in as a pharmaceutical research analyst. But just last week, he received his Google Data Scientist certificate, right? And he did that on his own because he knew where the marketplace is going, because we need more data scientists to analyze the data and tell the story so we can make business decisions that are data-driven. We need to make data-driven business decisions. So I think that the talent with data scientists and the young engineers is going to really help us get there.
That's wonderful. I am not a public sector employee directly at the agency. I'm a former military guy. So I was in there. And one of the things that I found always fascinating is the access to making decisions very early in a career. When you get the right organization, you get a chance to get exposure to decisions that would take much longer in the private sector. And I also think that I'm so impressed with each of you for the innovations that you bring, and those innovations draw talent. So I think the more that you get your message out to the innovative things that each of your organizations are doing, you will find naturally people say, hey, I want to be part of that. I think that's a pretty great thing. So I'd like to ask all of us to give a special appreciation again on Sealson, Daryl Spencer, Leilani Thielen, Omar El Baghlati. Thank you very much for the time today on this panel. Great job.